Hey Boyd, Bibby Rizzo here for day 10. Alright, back to Netflix, and I'm surprised it took this long for Netflix to really start shoving its originals into my face. I mean, technically The Ritual was Netflix original. Yeah, The Ritual. But for me, it didn't feel like as much as one. It's kind of one that isn't as widely advertised as much anymore. So I was gonna let that one slide, but now they're definitely starting to kick a few of them to the front of my queue, I think. So this one's definitely the most recent movie on for the month, and I imagine unless some of the sequels to this come up, it's probably going to remain the most the newest movie, and that's Fear Street Part 1, 1994. And I'm actually kind of glad this one came up. It was a movie I had been meaning to see, and I grew up reading the Goosebumps books and some of the Fear Street books, so okay, yeah, this is relevant to me. And overall, I suppose I wasn't disappointed. I had a few questions or comments, but overall I enjoyed it for the most part. So, this one takes place in the town of Shadyside, and apparently the murder capital of the world, because every so often, well, bad things happen in Shadyside. While their neighbors in, I think it was Sunnydale. I think that was what it was. I might be crossing into Buffy territory there a little bit. Anyway, it's like pretty much the most perfect place to live. Well, now we have our main character Dina, who's now caught up in the most recent spiral of murder and chaos. Now, this one movie is a little high school, after school special to a degree. Like, a lot of the characters are just doing their high school thing, and there's a lot of high school drama that's going on about it. And some characters' choices and decisions, particularly in their relationships, was a little hard to make some of them hard to sympathize, particularly Dina. But at the same time, some people are just like that, and you can understand why. So for Dina, she became kind of more likable as the movie went on, but the falling out she had with her girlfriend Sam was you you wanted to kind of shake her a little bit on it because a lot of the fallout was more her fault. All right, so yes, there is a very a pretty decently portrayed lesbian relationship in this movie, and while they do use it a little bit of the advertising here, they don't overplay it, which I was kind of worried about. I mean, at first they try to play it a little bit subtle, but just leaving her name as Sam and not gendering her until she's met. So they were, I guess, trying to play it like a reveal, but it's one of those things that's been spoilered all over. So, but they did an okay job with at least keeping it out in there, and then they don't go crazy with it and make it the whole. Well, it is an important plot point. It's more of the danger with it of the situation rather than the fact that it is a lesbian romance that is what's causing the problems. Yes, there's some tension, and because of it, but it isn't thrown in front of you. It's not front and center the whole time. Like they acknowledge that yes, there are difficulties with this relationship in this time period while in high school, but they don't overdo it. Like they just have a few comments about how people would react and about one character perhaps being embarrassed about their relationship. But they not only do they not really overplay that, because yes, that's not as nearly as important as axe wielding monsters coming at you. But they actually take some pains to start resolving it, and the relationship does grow a bit. Which, okay, I was on board with that. Now, so this takes place as a new murder has just taken place, and all the characters are reeling from that a little bit, or just fine and ignoring it. as the case may be. But Dina's girlfriend Sam has moved to Sunnyville, the good town, and she feels betrayed by this. So, particularly as it's the kind of a rival town, and there's a lot of tension there in general. Then, after a fight breaks out at a memorial that was going to take place before a football game, well, some more back and forth pranks and hazing take place, and the Sunnydale people start harassing the bus of Shadyside characters, which, due to well, it's kind of implied that the witch may have caused it. Yes, there's a witch, by the way. That she might be the origin of all the darkness in the town, but more on that later. May have influenced the accident, the car accident, but it was essentially Sam was in the car with the jocks who were trying to harass the Shadyside characters, and Dina was trying to just splash a cooler on them just to ward them off, but got a nosebleed, got distracted, and dropped the whole cooler, causing an accident. And this caused Sam to be, well, exposed to the bones of the witch, which now, then ghosts of the killers that have fallen under the witch's spell are now after her. And now they're doing everything they can to keep themselves and her alive. As the killer from the most recent mall attack is returned, as well as a couple others, and, well, nothing seems to stop these ghost murderers. Okay, so, for the most part, yes, I was really on board with it. It's weird tonally, because, yes, like I said earlier, it kind of feels a little after-school special until the brutal killings start, because some of them were very gory, very over the top, particularly when someone's head is kissing a bread saw. Yeah, so it's a weird balance here, but at the same time, that does make the gore seem that much more intense because they are so extreme compared to the tone of the rest of the movie. Now, this is it's kind of a strange thing because it's definitely an R-rated movie, and it's not like a soft R by any means, but a lot of like the high school stuff feels like it's aimed more for like a PG-13 audience, so it's a little odd there, but it wasn't really taking me out of it. In fact, I did appreciate the dueling tones, as it were. I thought they complemented themselves, but it could still be a little bit jarring at times. So, the witch in question, so far, that's causing all this, has not been overplayed, but this is the part 1 of 3, so I think more is going to be coming of her later. So, she seems to be she was lynched back in the 1800s, 1700s, or no, the 1600s, I think. I haven't seen the later movies, so I can't really talk too much about that. But pretty much it seems that she whispers to people of Shadyside, and then they start killing on her behalf. And then she seems to they become her slaves, and she has the ability to call them back later. But because Sam stumbled upon her bones and saw her, now she's essentially cursed to, until she dies, be stalked by these killers. Okay, cool. For the most part, everything was working fine for me. I liked the characters. I mean, Dina you wanted to shake a little bit, but she got better. But for the most part, they feel like friends, and they do mesh really well together. So I was appreciating that. One issue I was having was with Dina's younger brother, Josh. Now, I liked him as a character. I had no problem with him or his actor, nothing there. I just wasn't sure what age he's supposed to be, and that's kind of the concern there. Like, Dina treats him like a bratty younger brother, and he does look a little bit younger. But then at the same time, he pretty much starts getting into a romance with one of Dina's friends. And I was just envisioning him as being like a middle school kid, so it didn't, in the way he acted around it, it didn't seem he was very awkward, but that could just because he was the nerdy computer type. Or So it makes it seem like he was younger than this relationship he should have been in, but it could have just been my misinterpretation. I just wasn't clear on it, and they really gave no indication of how old he was, but he was treated like a annoying younger brother, but of more than a couple years. But maybe he was just a year or two younger, and then it would have been fine. But it seemed like it was like a more of a couple year gap. The other instance is how they resolve the current issue. There are still some issues left hanging, which is what leads into the sequel. But now, it's probably not fair to this movie, but the resolution they come up with, I'd seen it before. It was a solution right out of another movie. And as soon as they said that they were doing it, I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this. Now I know how it's going to resolve because I've seen them do this. Admittedly, they were going about it a different way, but oddly enough, they actually ended up going up the finishing by doing the same exact same type of thing as this other movie. I won't go too much into spoilers on that regard, but I will. But I will give the series, since there's like 6 of them now, I think, or at least 5. So it might not be an exact spoiler, but if you've seen any of the Final Destination movies, you'll probably be able to figure out exactly what I'm talking about for how they resolve one of the cases here. Now, it's different for each movie on how they end up getting out of those, but there's one in particular that it was lifted right out of there. And that was kind of a shame, because I was hoping they'd do something a bit more creative and original, but, well, I guess this is a movie based on nostalgia, so... Which, yes, the soundtrack did resonate with me. It was very familiar, and they did a good job capturing the 90s feel, so it did good on that one. For me, I was debating where to drop this one on there. It's in the 3 MacGuffin category. The ghost designs were okay, but they weren't great. The kills, while some of them then were over the top gory, they weren't the most inventive, other than like maybe one of them. But it's kind of by the numbers at times, but which makes it kind of like a comfort food slasher kind of movie. It's familiar, but it's fresh enough that it's something I wouldn't mind seeing again. So I can't quite get this into the 4 category because there is room for improvements, but I'd say it's a solid 3. Even on the higher end of 3, I did enjoy it. So, yeah, it's not outstanding, but it's got some good potential, and I'm curious to see how they work with it in the next one, which goes into like the summer camp and seems like a decent send up to the Friday the 13th series as they jump back to the 70s. Okay, I'm on board. I would like to see that, but I need to wait for the Netflix gods to bestow that one upon me. Otherwise, I might have to get back to that sometime in November. Well, I think that's all I have to touch on this one, but so far, I'd say the series is worth a look. Have a good night, and see you guys tomorrow.